Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome you all for today's e-conference on role of PSUs in making chemical sector Aatma. Myself, Pravin Prashant, editor Indian Chemical News, will be your host and moderator for today's e-conference. Today, we have an eminent set of panelists from the entire chemical industry ecosystem. It is from the chemical sector, the oil sector, the petrochemical and gas sector, the fertilizer players, engineering consultancy companies, EPC and vendor community and academicians. Without wasting any time, let me introduce you to our elite speaker list for today's e-conference. We have with us Mr. Atul Sobti, Director General Scope, Mr. PV Ravitej, Executive Director Refineries, BPCL, Dr. KK Jain, Executive Director, Center for High Technology, Dr. SP Mohanty, CMD HIL, Mr. Prabh, MD and CEO, HPCL Mittal Energy, Ms. Vartika Shukla, Director Technology, EIL, Mr. Kishor Rungta, CMD FACT, Dr. Ghanshyam Patel, former ED Operations GSFC, Mr. Rakesh Verma, CEO and MD, Simon India, Mr. Satyabhusan, Professor Marketing, IIM Lucknow, Mr. Sadanand Bhavanishankar, Managing Director, Elliott India, Elliott Ebara, Turbomachinery India. Our partners are Elliott and Simon India. The key discussion points of this webinar would be focusing on role of PSUs in developing Indian chemical sector, PSUs emerging as a savior during COVID-19 crisis, modernization of chemical PSUs, performance of PSUs and its impact, future of PSUs and need of PSUs to make India Aatma in chemical sector. Next slide. For delegates, we have interesting contest called IC and Play and Win contest, and this will be hosted by my colleague Yogesh Joshi during the course of the webinar. Just a brief about the contest. Moderator will be asking questions from the audience during the course of the session, and the one who responds first with the correct answer stands eligible for winning ₹1,000 gift voucher from Amazon. All the questions will be asked by the moderator of the session, and replies need to be given in the chat window. The replies need to be given in the chat window box of your respective screen on Zoom platform. The final winners will be announced at the close of the e-conference session. Only the persons with the correct answer responding first in order of priority shall be declared winner. Organizer and sponsor partner employees are not eligible to participate in the contest, and also the speakers. Organizers' decisions to be treated as final, gift vouchers to be sent electronically. So this is from my side. Now I would request our first speaker, Mr. Sadanand Bhavanishankar, MD, Elliott Ebara Turbomachinery India, and Director Ebara Machinery India, to give his presentation.
Okay, can you hear me, please?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Great. Yes. Well, firstly, thank you, Mr. Pravin, for the introduction, and what I hope will be an engaging and a very interactive event today. Secondly, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, on this Friday afternoon from Bengaluru, and I thank you for taking the time to join us. I'm both humbled and honored to have the privilege of addressing this august audience, and more, to be on the same dais with the distinguished panelists and speakers, each one of whom is a giant and a recognized industry stalwart. When ICN first approached me for participating in this event, it greatly piqued my interest for a couple of reasons. One, Elliott and Ebara's business relationships with India's refining and petrochemical industries, including PSUs, dates back to almost 7 decades, 5 years after independence. Elliott supplied steam turbines in 1952 to Standard Vacuum Oil in Mumbai. Today, we know that as HPCL Mahol. Also, Elliott supplied critical turbo machinery which is the charge gas and refrigeration compression trains to National Organics Chemicals in 1962. That was the country's first petrochemical plant, which has been mothballed since then. But we have not looked back since then. And today, close to 90% of India's ethylene production and a major part of the oil refining capacity, as well as others in fertilizers and other chemical production facilities, depends directly or indirectly on Elliott and Ebara equipment, which is in operation at almost every single PSU, public sector unit in this industry. And secondly, on a personal note, I have been very invested in this journey for over 35 years, now in the field of process turbomachinery, involving compressors, steam turbines, and other equipment. I've sat on all sides of the table, from design, applications, engineering, projects, business development, and management, and also includes a stint at one of our premier public sector organizations, EIL, which is almost 25 years back. So with that background, both Elliott and me, when I saw this particular seminar come up, it was very interesting to see what we can do. So I'd like to take a few more minutes of your time to bring what we think is a global OEM's perspective on the role of PSUs in making chemical industry Atmanirbhar, what our understanding is and what we can do. Next, please. So as I mentioned, as a global OEM which has been in the country for very long and more recently, here's what we understand of Atmanirbhar Bharat and also of the PSU role. So next, please. As the name suggests, Atmanirbhar Bharat, a self-reliant, self-dependent India. Can we stay on the first bullet point, please? Thank you. This is not self-centered and closed. In fact, it's a very open concept which plays a bigger role and more important role in the global economy, and not just now in the post-COVID world and for decades to come. Next, please. A critical role of PSUs from our understanding is out of the 5 pillars which has been defined by our Prime Minister. PSUs directly support economy, infrastructure, technology-driven systems, and even though today we use the word Atmanirbhar, this has always been the driving philosophy for all our PSUs in the country. Next, please. It's very fair to say and not wrong to say that particularly chemical and petrochemical PSUs are driving engines in times of crisis or in normal times. They provide essential commodities which makes the country run: medicines, fuels, energy, fertilizer, other building blocks. And these PSUs have very high investment, very large infrastructure, and they use modern technology to keep themselves efficient, meet environmental and safety norms, international norms, increase capacity, and today they're on the cusp of becoming global players to drive the world economy and influence it. Next, please. When we talk about such large growth engines, for example, refining and petrochemical plants, one of the key needs PSUs have is to have the basis of strong support systems so that they can run 24/7, 365, year on year, and for these support systems to be preferably in country, so that we're talking again about Atmanirbhar Bharat. Next, please. And when we talk about these critical support systems, as I mentioned at the beginning, one of the key elements is process turbomachinery equipment, which are the heart of these plants. And the reason we at Elliott and I feel these are the heart is a very complex plant is like a human body. All of us have 2 hands, 2 eyes, 2 legs. And God forbid, in an unfortunate situation, if we lose a limb, it's not the best situation, but we can still survive. But we have only 1 heart. And if that heart stops, that's the end of the plant. So it's very important that we take good care. And that's where process turbomachinery, they do not have any standbys. The entire plant relies on these equipment. And it is imperative that these machines run so that the plants can run and meet the demands of the country. Next, please. So for our public sector unit to be Atmanirbhar and to support the country's needs, it's very important that the procurement of such equipment, continuously operate this equipment, and maintenance of such equipment is very, very key. The key word here is vocal for local, which we have all heard our Prime Minister speak and resonates with us. And such support, such in-country resources not only support the Atmanirbhar, but they also become resources for the global market, thus helping India play a bigger role in the economy. In other words, simple words, this is a business continuity plan for the country, for PSUs, and for us to make sure that in times of crisis, we are not left behind. Next slide, please. So with that understanding of PSU's roles, the next step for us, and particularly global OEMs, what can we do to support this concept of Atmanirbhar? And particularly with PSUs, there is a very strong interdependence. Next slide, please. Thank you. So one of the key things is we need to understand the critical support needs of the public sector units, which I outlined in my previous slide. And we need to appreciate that this is very key to the working of the entire plant and the company and the organization. Next one. The bottom line is that it should be easy. We should make it easy for public sectors to conduct their operations. And we need to set up strategic in-country and global support systems. This is, of course, best dictated by each OEM's global strategic model on what's the best way. It works for the OEM, it works for the PSU, and broadly for the economy and the industry. Next, please. One of the key things to focus on such setups is the growth engines should keep running. They should make the Atmanirbhar pillars of economy, infrastructure, and technology stronger and more powerful. At the same time, it should also be a profitable business venture for the OEM, which increases the global presence and the footprint. Some of the indirect benefits which accrue, there's employment of people, it creates demand, and it brings best practices to both the country as well as the OEM learns from the country's best practices to take it back to their global organization. Next. Some of the examples of in-country support which an OEM can provide PSUs to be Atmanirbhar is to provide very responsive technical and service expertise for operating and running the plant. As I mentioned, these plants run 24/7, 365 for years and decades together. And there is needs for these plants to be overhauled, for shutdowns, having in-country repair and refurbishment, having rapid service teams who are world-class. Whenever an organization or a plant looks to be more efficient, increase capacity, modernization, have those solutions very quickly available, and also provide manufacturing capabilities in country, as well as engineering resources which match or exceed standards. One of the ways to do this is local project management, supply chain, quality assurance, setting up international procurement offices, setting up engineering and drafting centers or global capability centers, which can be used not just locally, but it can be exported out, again, to make India part of the global economy. Next, please. These are just a set of some actions which we think we have outlined. There are many more such actions which OEMs can take. And what they do is they will assist and support PSUs to play a key role in Atmanirbhar for self-reliance. It also establishes a growth path for localization in the country, for innovation. It reaches out to the global economy and provides a clear path for navigating the future. Any specific details on what Elliott does and Ebara does, our organization would be happy to give more details separately to any of the esteemed audience members here. Next, please. So on the last slide, one of the taglines we use for Elliott is "The world turns to Elliott." This has always been the tagline. And when this whole concept of Atmanirbhar came, words of our Prime Minister, which all of us in India are very familiar with, resonated us with Elliott and all our employees in India. If you can click, please. So the words are Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. We all know this means the world is one family. And our tagline very strongly supports that. The world turns to Elliott because the world is one family. More so, because the world is world family, we turn to the world and we turn to all of you to support our quest in being Atmanirbhar and supporting PSUs. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it. Back to you, Mr. Pravin.
Thank you, Mr. Sadanand Bhavanishankar, for your short and sweet presentation. So now we begin the panel discussion without wasting time. We have a big team, and everybody is eager to listen from our speakers, esteemed speakers. So let me open the panel discussion, and I would request Mr. Atul Sobti, DG Scope. He was also the CMD of BHEL. So Sobti sir, if you can talk about the role of PSUs in making chemical industry Atmanirbhar, because you are the nodal agency for all the PSUs. So your views matter a lot. Over to Mr. Atul Sobti, sir.
Thank you very much. Excellent presentation by Elliott Group, Mr. Sadanand. Good. First of all, very good afternoon to everyone who is present here. And it's a privilege for me to be amidst the industry experts in the chemical industry, and many of them have been associated with me while working in BHEL. Either they were my customer or business associate, and now also in scope, two of our board members are also going to be making presentations or their address here. It's a great pleasure for me. Thank you, Mr. Prashant, giving me this opportunity and being part of this important discussions. Ladies and gentlemen, while the pandemic has brought many unexpected turn of events, but it has also opened number of opportunities also. I'll tell that what PSC has done in this regard, how chemical industry can do to make the country self-reliant. But first, talking about the COVID period. The efforts which have been made by the corporates, especially the public sector enterprises, that have been supplemented by the government policies, their intents, and which is clearly focusing the developing the domestic capacities and making the country self-reliant in most products. As mentioned by Mr. Sadanand also, that our Honorable Prime Minister in his historic address to the nation in May 20, he made a call for making the country self-reliant, Atmanirbhar. And at that point of time, he highlighted the importance of local manufacturing, local consumptions of the locally produced goods, and gave a new mantra, vocal for local. Since then, there has been no looking back, neither in the intent of the government nor the industry, and everybody has been doing their bit. Recently, Government of India has announced their Aatma Nirbhar 3.0 package for the industry. I'll just give you one example, which Honorable Prime Minister had also mentioned, that before COVID-19 pandemic struck the country, there were not many units who were manufacturing the mask or the PPE gear production. Rather, 2.75 lakh PPE kits were getting imported. And at present today, the industry, they are more than 100 plus or much more than this manufacturing units are there, and they are producing nearly 2 lakh PPE kits per day. So these are some of the examples which tell that India can do it. Given the challenge, we can do it. Let me talk about public sector role in the Indian economy. As Mr. Prashant also mentioned, I mean, representing the apex body of the public sector enterprises at scope, and what they have done during the COVID period. As all of you are aware that public sector have been the torch bearer of the government initiatives in the area of economic growth, infrastructure development, market competition, price stabilization. But when public sector, when the India became independent, at that point of time, our colonial government at that time, when they used to be there, they were more interested in importing the finished good and exporting the raw material from here. And then when public sector was set up at that time, focus was more on the import substitution or making the country self-reliant. And that self-reliance importance has further gone up today after the clarion call given by our Honorable Prime Minister. Performance of public sector has been excellent according to me. Some figures I like to share with you. Today, these public sector, central public sector enterprises are having the turnover of close to 25 lakh crore, with nearly 1.5 lakh crores of the profit, net profit. A general perception is there. Many of the participants would also be having the perception that many of the public sector are making losses. No, I like to remove that perception. 71% of the public sector enterprises are profit making today, as against 28% loss making. So this is against the popular belief that public sector enterprises are drain on the national exchequer. They are contributing close to 13% of the GDP and contribute every year 3.6 lakh crore rupees per annum to the Indian exchequers by way of taxes, duties, dividend, etc. CSR, lot of contribution is there. And not only in domestic sector, in the overseas sector also, they have the global marketplace. Coming to the COVID, these PSCs have done wonderful work during the COVID period also, whether it's a medical, social, and contributing to the Prime Minister's CARES Fund. And in fact, they have outshined, learned and expertise the art of making PP kits, sanitizers. With the chemical industry came forward, large scale sanitization facilities, ventilators, and making the country self-reliant in COVID combating devices. At scope, we took the lead, and we in fact collected all the data that what PSCs have done. And this is in form of a compendium, which is PSC's contribution amidst the COVID. And we got the blessings from highest echelon of the government, including the Honorable President, Vice President, Honorable Prime Minister, Ministers. I'll request the participants to see this compendium, which is available on our website also. And all of you will feel proud the kind of work these public sector enterprises have done during this COVID period. Now the foundation of Atmanirbhar Bharat has been laid, and domestic capacities are ready to deal with this requirement of the country. And there is huge potential, I believe, huge potential in all the fields. Just to give you some figures of the imports, the country, there is a huge market is there. You see, you take the 5 major products which we are importing today. 5 lakh crores of minerals, 2 lakh crores of the coal, over 3 lakhs crores of the electrical machinery, 3 lakh crores of the general machinery, and 1.5 lakh crores of the organic chemical. Organic chemical is one of the 15 subgroups of the chemical. So which comes number 5 when we talk of the imports. Over 1 lakh crores of the capital goods. I do agree that some of the imports are required because they are in form of raw material not available in the country. But the products which can be manufactured here, there is a huge opportunity. It's not only huge opportunity for the Indian market, but for the using this capacity and capability, then exporting it outside. Now let me talk about the chemical industry. Chemical industry, I'm not expert in this field, but whatsoever I know, they and Mr. Sadanand also mentioned, they form the backbone of the industrial and agriculture development of the country. And they form the building block for nearly 70,000 to 80,000 commercial products and accounting for nearly 7% of the Indian GDP. But a lot of import is being done by us, because in terms of, if you see, we are, I think, sixth largest importer in the chemical industry. Although we are the third largest producer in the Asia and the sixth largest producer globally. But this particular segment, this particular sector is so important for the country that this is the time when all of us have to come together and we have to work together for achieving the Nirbhar objective in the country. When we are, as I mentioned, that we are the sixth in the global imports. So you can see the how potential is there, and public sectors can definitely work very closely with everybody and come forward in meeting this requirement for not only for the import substitution, but ultimately going for the creating the surplus capacity and adding to the exports of the country. And this can only be done through the quality products, meeting the parameters of the cost, quality, and after scale. So I feel that self-reliant is not only substitution of the, which I am again telling again and again, for manufacturing products of the world class, but taking it to the world map, export map. And this can happen. This cannot happen in the weeks or in year, but when the enablers are in place and we have the 100% focus and we can make the country self-reliant in this field, I strongly believe it. At the end, I like to mention 3 points, I think, which all of us have to work together. The first is R&D. We need to put in a lot of efforts in R&D. R&D has been a very favorite subject of mine, especially when I was heading one of the largest engineering organizations in the country. And we used to spend a lot in the R&D area. Country as a whole spends very less as a percentage of GDP, it's close to 0.8% only. And if you compare it with China or any other countries, there is a huge spending which is done. If I talk about the chemical industry, we spend only 2.2 to 3% of our turnover as an R&D. And our competitors are the multinational company, they spend 9 to 10%. Let us decide that we will spend much more in R&D. All of us need to put forward our views in that. The first is the R&D. And for R&D, not only for R&D, for other area, another aspect is the synergy. So first is R&D, second is synergize and brainstorm. For synergize and brainstorm and having the competitive edge, we need to have the combination, collaborate of all the public sector, private sector, academia, government, some kind of, I think, setup can be there where all of us can brainstorm and we can utilize each other facilities, share the best experience, and there we can also have the people from the policymakers, we can have from the industries, our people who have retired also, but they are expert in this field. I think that kind of forum has to be created and we need to synergize among ourselves for the joint R&D as well as the joint business efforts. It's like I was talking about the exports. Many organizations would be having their own setups in the exports. That setup can be used by the other company also. They need not have another setup there. Third is, which I like to mention, the digitalize and automate the processes. This is the time I personally feel that a lot of work can be done in digitalization and the automation of the processes, so that we, in the chemical industry, I'm saying, so that we have the new processes and products where we have the cost and price optimization. And from the scope side, we have been partnering not only with the public sector, but with the corporates and whether in very international organization, we can, wheresoever we can provide any support or help to the fraternity, and through policy advocacy, through the research work or the surveys, studies, brainstorming, we'll be ready to come forward as an apex body, and will be happy to collaborate in any areas that the chemical industry may require. With these words, I like to close by saying that although the road to achieve the self-sufficiency or the Atmanirbharta may be difficult and filled with hurdles, but I still believe that partnership of all the stakeholders, government, corporate, public sector, that will surely make us achieve an Atmanirbhar Bharat. And this is a time we should make use of this opportunity. Thank you. Thank you very much. Jai Hind.
I had one small brief question. You talked about R&D, synergy, digitization, and automation. And you talked about 25 lakh crore revenue and 1.5 lakh crore profit. If these things work together, what is the number that you are looking for? Because that will be the real achievement for Atmanirbhar Bharat as we move forward. So I want to take one number from you in terms of revenue and profit as we move ahead.
Revenue and profit of whom?
The complete PSUs.
No, complete PSU, I am still saying the kind of profitability, this 25 lakh crore, which is the turnover, 1.5 lakh crore is a net profit. If we are able to sustain this number, even in the post-COVID period, it's a very good number, very good number. But now the point is that we need to sustain this. In the chemical industry, there are certain organizations, they are still to come to the what we call profitability zone. Let us work together. And I am just giving you one number that in the R&D, we need to take the percentage of the turnover, which is presently 2 to 3%. Let's all the organization aim to take it to close to 3 to 4% to begin with. This is a number I think we jointly need to work in R&D. And next is, I have seen that the facilities one organization is having, other people are even not aware what kind of facility they are having. I think forums like this can join and tell that these are facilities. We don't have any portal where facilities are even why to talk of chemical industry. In the public sector also, there we are thinking of having something in the by scope that some portal can be there. We know what kind of facilities are there, and that can be provided by one organization to another.
Thank you, Atul sir, for your what we can say laying the ground rules for today's webinar. Those numbers are self-explanatory in nature and need no what we can say further elaboration. And it was a pleasure having you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Bhavanishankar. My pleasure.
Now I request Mr. PV Ravitej, Executive Director's Refineries, BPCL, if he can give his views. My question to you, sir, would be, what are the initiatives that your company has taken under Atmanirbhar Bharat, and if you can talk about what would be the role of refineries in future, because we are seeing oil to sea or oil to chemical being a focus. So your views, sir, on this.
Thank you very much. I'm audible now?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Yes, I think during all these speeches, now that very common word we are starting, you please unmute. So that is not required to be done. So good afternoon, and thank you very much for the opportunity. All the eminent panelists and all the participants. So very good afternoon to you. Before we go ahead, the points which you want me to cover, the eminent personality, Mr. Atul Sobti, he very eminent leader per se. He was making an important point about where the collaboration is required. So that point I want to elaborate. So in the same panel, I am seeing that so Mr. KK Jain is there. He is Executive Director, Center for High Technology, and Director Technical, Ms. Vartika Shukla. So we are having a great collaboration, be it having a common catalyst manufacturing hub to be made, or at least so the petrochemicals or the refining sector, what all we want to do that one. So these efforts are on. I think, sir, we will definitely further enhance our collaboration. Coming to the role of PSUs, let me only make a point. Refineries, particularly in the chemical sector, if you see, they have not been very aggressive, but for a few of the private sectors, Reliance has started in a big way in the petrochemicals. So then I think in the refining sector, Indian Oil Corporation is the first one which has started in a big way in petrochemicals, and then of course others are following. If you really look at why this happened, the focus, I think, if Indian refining industry itself in 1999, it was almost 62 or 65 million metric tons of refining capacity. Got increased to by 2020, we are 250 million metric tons. So fourfold rise has happened in these 20 years. See, the main purpose of this refinery sector was to ensure that the common man is provided with LPG, or earlier that kerosene were the common man fuel, and also for the common middle class people, all the auto fuels that have to be made. So the focus was there. And if you see, petrochemicals is going to be the one which is going to be oiling the particular industry and the economy. So we all know that petrochemicals percentage, I think contribution versus that growth versus GDP growth. Always petchem growth is slightly 20 to 30% higher than that one. Still, we have not gone into that space, most of the refineries. Now the times have changed. Now with the auto fuels demand shrinking, or at least alternate fuels taking over. So the question which you are making a point, that what is that refineries are going to be doing in future? It is essentially making the feedstock for petrochemicals, or to a certain extent going into the next level of petrochemical chain, and they will be going. So this is the way it is going to pan out. Coming back to the requirement of self-reliance, when we were operating the refineries in the late March end and during the peak of COVID periods. So right from the ministry, everybody's focus was only how do we able to ensure that refineries are operated with the zero demand for petrol and diesel. Still, you need to be making LPG, which is required for the common man. And one more important stream is propylene, which we were required to make, so that can be converted to isopropyl alcohol, and then which is very much needed during the pandemic for making sanitizers. So all this was possible only because we were able to operate our refineries. Now, as far as the collaboration in the next step is concerned, is yes, I think R&D, we have to go in a bigger way and make world-class processes, as well as the catalyst which we have to make. We have been doing that one. More the important reason for that one is nothing much to do with our expertise or capabilities, more to do with that one. Something is available off the shelf, why don't we take it? And I think we have our own other focus areas. That was our thinking process. And so I could say that some world-class catalyst systems, we have produced and deployed. And the processes also, I think IOC, R&D, so they have gone in for a technology for residue degradation in FCC, and so it is being licensed all over the world. So we have capabilities of rising to the occasion. The time has come, I think, as our Honorable Prime Minister said that, so this is the time for us to leverage, take this opportunity and so convert our nation to a self-reliant nation. So today the petrochemicals are about 6%. Very easily we will be able to, or at least the focus will now be going towards anywhere between 20% plus levels. People are talking even up to 50-60% with crude to chemicals. So even otherwise also up to 20-25% if you are switching, that import dependency will be coming down and we'll be able to produce world-class polymers. So these are few of my comments, and thank you very much for this opportunity.
I had another question to you. It was with respect to indigenization of technology and development of new technologies. Where do you see PSUs faring on this particular topic, sir?
As I mentioned in my initial comment, so we have a great forum. I think our three refining sector, three giants of oil giants, Indian Oil Corporation, Bharat Petroleum, Hindustan Petroleum. being there, ably supported by Engineers India Limited and coordinated by Center for High Technology. So we have a fantastic collaboration, and now the time has come. Anything that is required with a focused approach, we are going about. We are in discussions. How do we make a manufacturing hub for catalysts in India, and also to what way I think we have to go and to what extent we have to go into the petrochemicals and how do you develop? Yes, I think R&D still we are having some different pockets of R&D centers, but some efforts are there to see that one unnecessarily will not duplicate and reinvent the wheel. So that the efforts are all there, and we are and one more important reason, we have seen that one in BPCL, our own Kochi refinery facilities, the processes we have taken from licenses. Now, because of the pandemic, last 6 months, we are not able to really do things or commission the facilities. The digital solutions we are deploying, trying to commission, but the lesson which we learned is that one, we have to be self-reliant, and we are in the right direction. We have definitely the turnovers and the margins which we are making, that one, we are in the right position to make things happen.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your views. Now I would request Dr. S.P. Mohanty, CMD HIL, if he can talk about the expansion strategy to make HIL Aatmanirbhar, as we are seeing what we can say production-linked incentives, which are being rolled out by different say ministries, and we hope to see soon also for the chemical sector. So over to Dr. S.P. Mohanty, sir.
Yeah, good afternoon, Pravin ji. It's a privilege, and good afternoon all my eminent panelists and the listeners. As far as before I go to HIL in specific, I can say you that after this COVID-19, rightly it has been pointed out by Mr. Sobti, that all of a sudden it has compelled us to look inwards, because prior to that everybody was looking outward and outward and outward. But when the thing has come into this point, you can see that in chemical and petrochemical, the country was so dependent on the imports itself. The total import figure in 1920 was around 4,11,000 crore, and net import was around 1,25,000 crore, and which is expected by the projection of my ministry, that is Chemical and Petrochemical Ministry. By 2023-24, the total import will touch around 6,84,000 crore, and out of which net import will be around 2,24,000 crore. So from this figure itself, we can imagine how important is this chemical and petrochemical sector, and how the things are moving in what direction. And another interesting fact, you can find it out, that if you go into this figure, you will find out that 49% of the import is from China, around 10% we import from Singapore, and 9% around from USA. So most of the thing is controlled by China as on date, and being a agrochemical industry and only agrochemical PSU in this sector, I can easily find out that entire raw material, a part of the entire value chain, around 60% of the value chain is being import dependent. So you can imagine that to grow as a agrochemical sector, because I will see, you can easily see that during pandemic only one sector in this country which has survived in a sustainable basis, and given that is the agriculture sector. And agriculture sector, really fertilizer, agrochemicals, seeds, these are the sector which has really helped a lot the country. As far as you can see that, yes, now PSU has to play a major role. We are in constantly in touch with our ministry. It's coming in a production linked incentive scheme. Of course, it has been declared for some of the sectors, but it is yet to come out for chemical and petrochemical sector, which we are also a member in that. We are working towards that. And second point is that the regular mechanism in the country to be addressed in a proper way so that the industrialist can be encouraged to invest their money in this country. So we have already in Chemical and Petrochemical Ministry, we have formed a facilitation cell that is led by, again, our Joint Secretary, and Secretary is the chairman of that. So for this environmental clearance and this regulatory clearance, all these things, we have formed a cell to encourage all the investors in this country. And as far as HIL is concerned, yes, it's a big challenge, because not only for HIL, for the agrochemical sector, what we have seen, that we have to immediately go for a backward integration. Without backward integration, it is almost impossible to survive in this market and become Nirbhar in this country, because since major of the intermediaries is being controlled by the exporters to this country, different countries having the control over that. So we have decided to go for all those value chain system entirely in toto, not in a part in this country, so that, and also in a bigger capacity. Whatever capacity today China is having, our motto is to go bigger to that. So these production incentive schemes can help the industry to compete with the outer world, also to export the chemicals and petrochemicals to outer world and be a net exporter of that instead of net importer of this chemical and petrochemical to the country. HIL, again, as a PSU, our role has become very prominent in this post-COVID scenario, because priorly this sector was mostly controlled by the import-based industry. So now government has given us the priority that we should go for immediately enhancement of large capacity with automation, digitization. Again, you can see that during another thing I will miss if I will not tell, that during this COVID period, less number of people must be knowing that there was a huge low-cost attack in this country, which would have been now Sudan, and you will see Somalia, Sudan, part of South Africa, they are facing the food problem, food crisis because of this low-cost attack. And HIL is the only organization in this country that has produced the malathion, which has supplied the entire, throughout the COVID period, starting from 6th of April, continuously this PSU has supplied malathion, not only to India, but also the breeding ground, which is Sudan and Iran, so that the breeding ground of locust can be attacked and country can be saved from locust attack, because 25% of our food grain production would have been affected if we would have not timely agriculture ministry would have not addressed to this problem. It's a huge problem. We have been appreciated by the all level, from the PMO itself, they have complimented us for this production itself. So seeing the things now, it is the priority of the PSUs. Also, we are open, not only as a PSU, we are not isolated or a cocoon self. We have already written to all those private sectors to come on a public-private partnership mode. Already UPL has expressed their interest to go ahead with HIL for a larger capacity building of all those backward chemicals, so that we can make a backward integration for our own products. So,
Dr. Mohanty, you talked about backward integration.
Yes.
And you have formed a JV with National Fertilizer Limited.
Yes.
So if you can briefly talk about how are you moving in that direction?
Yes, already it's we are on the verge of signing the MOU with NFL for having a backward integration project of production of our chemical, that is a NATCP, is a raw material for one of our pesticides in the Rasayani plant itself. So we are going to have it, and the turnover will be around 2,000 crores from that single project itself. So we are on the verge of signing the MOU with NFL. Thank you.
So what kind of plant and machinery investment that would be required in this when you make revenues of 2,000 odd crores? What is the investment that you are planning?
The project cost is around 1,200 crores in 3 phases. So it is, the project period is around 2 years. So by 2 years it will be completed, and on that basis we will be going this plan.
Thank you, Dr. Mohanty, for your thoughts.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I would request Mr. K.K. Jain, Executive Director, Center for High Technology. Sir, you have been monitoring and benchmarking a lot of these refinery and petrochemical companies. So how do you see the monitoring and benchmarking helping these companies to become Nirbhar and also help in terms of exports as well as import, what we can say, reduction? Over to Mr. K.K. Jain.
Thank you, Prashant, and good afternoon to the light panel of experts. Talking on chemical industries, the relevance of PSU there, and we are part of the ministry. So I will give you the global perspective of the Indian chemical and petrochemical industry first, and then the reason why we should become self-reliant, what are the necessity of that, and what are the actions that are being initiated either through CST or through the government and being implemented. So let's start with the top, our import figure itself. If we talk the total import, what India did in 2018-19 was around $507 billion. Out of that, the oil import itself was around $128 billion, which is around 25% of the total import. Now let's talk to the chemical and petrochemicals. That was something like $56 billion, which amounts to around 11%. So if we see total oil, chemicals and petrochemical together, it accounts to roughly 36% of our import. Now this import has increased. If we see from 2015-16 to now 2018-19, it has increased by around 6.5%. In 2015-16, this figure total means oil plus chemical and petrochemical together was 29.5% of our import, which has now become 36%. So our import figures are increasing like anything at a very faster pace. Other side, what we are seeing, that the refineries have grown up like anything to meet the country demand. So we are at present around say 250 million metric ton refining capacity. Now we are increasing the refining capacity, but our crude oil production is not proportionately increasing in the country. So our import dependency on crude has gone to the 89%. And in near future, when we expand our refinery from say 254 million to around 433 million by 2030, this our import dependency will further increase more than 90%. So it's a very, very serious situation for us. How to become Atmanirbhar in this kind of scenario? If we talk about the gas, the total consumption of gas in 2019-20 was 64.1 billion cubic meter. Out of that, we imported 33.9, which is around 53%. And we are talking gas economy now. From 6%, we aspire to move to 15% by 2030. How we will do? If we don't increase our gas production, or if we don't increase our oil production, are we going to become more self-reliant or more dependent on that? So we need some serious efforts on our side, how to at least decrease that import dependency. For that, if we see the government has made a massive plan, considering the huge amount of the import and the figures which we are talking, which are mind-boggling. At least the target was given, can be reduced 10% import dependency. So the 5 major strategies were drawn. The first and foremost was increase in oil and gas production. The major thrust is now on the gas side, which is equivalent to now 36.5 million ton equivalent. There is a target, can be increased this gas production in the country. The second important strategy that has been adopted is the biofuel and the renewables. If we can produce biofuel from our waste, agri waste or the food waste, can be replaced part of this so that our crude, either the crude or the gas consumption can be reduced. Third thing, we are talking the energy efficiency improvement in the refining system. The refining systems are very complex, consumes a lot of energy. Typically around 10 to 11% of our fuel and loss is there in the refinery. So if we improve even 1%, that gives a massive numbers to which we can save through the energy efficiency. Fourth thing, we are talking about the refining process improvement. See, particularly if we see our public sector refineries, they have grown up in pieces, piecemeals, means the capacity expansions have taken place in the phases. So those refineries are not so efficient compared to the newer refineries or the state of refinery which have come, say, after 2000 onwards. So there are few refineries, they produce a lot of black oil. So can we convert that black oil into white oil, like say LPG or say diesel or the gasoline kind of product? Because our refining capacity is determined by the demand of the gasoline and the diesel. So if we can convert those black oil into white oil, so efforts are on that side. And the fifth one is the demand substitution through power import or by biofuels replacement or by say promotion of say more eco-friendly and more say high calorific kind of fuel like LPG or LNG in the refineries. So these are the 5 major strategies on which the government is working and the CST is working on the behalf of the government. CST basically monitors the kind of impact that should come to the PSU refineries to improve the performance either in terms of say energy efficiencies or the refinery productivity improvement through say converting to the black oil into white oil or by converting say consuming the black oil products in the refineries, so convert into the say high efficient like gas in the refineries or the power import in the refinery. So CST is monitoring, CST is doing the benchmarking of public sector refineries compared with the say private sector refinery and even with the global best. Then finding out the gaps, then we make the programs for our PSU refinery, how to bridge that gap. So for that, different kinds of programs are run up. Just one thing I would like to say. So one thing, this is the scenario in the say, refining side. If we see on the petrochemical side, huge gap is there. Our petrochemical growth is around 1.5 times of the GDP. So that growth we are not able to match with our production. The first and most important thing was the feedstock availability is not there in the refinery. So far the focus was there from the refinery to produce the transport fuel. But now the situation is changing because of thin margin in the refineries and the tapered growth, projected growth. Now the focus has also come to produce petrochemicals in the refinery. So the petrochemical production will also increase in the refinery, that is projected from 13.8 million metric ton to 56.1 million metric ton. It will touch by 2030. So efforts are there on the refining capacity side as well as the petrochemical side, how to reduce the imports. Another thing, what I want to say, particularly in the petrochemical and chemical side, we are having the capacity we see of the chemical industries, but those capacities not being utilized. Reason? Our chemical industries are not competitive enough. We have seen the product coming from China or from outside, and our industries are not running. So our industries have to become globally competitive. Efforts have to be made on that side in the petrochemical, chemical, even in the refining side. So this is just in the nutshell I want to say in the beginning. Thank you.
Sir, Mr. K.K. Jain, sir, another question was with respect to the green hydrogen and the biofuel. Government has come up with an attractive price with respect to biofuel. So if we can briefly touch upon these two topics which are hot, it would be great for our delegates.
Yeah, on biofuel side for 1G ethanol, the prices have been declared by the government and those prices are quite attractive. But now the focus is to develop the infrastructure for 2G refineries, second generation biofuel refineries, for which PM Jeevan Yojana has been launched and for which the CST is the nodal agency to implement. So 12 biorefineries are supposed to come in say next 3 to 4 years within this public sector's refinery, along with 10 demonstration plants that will come. So this is on the same the 1G and 2G ethanol side. Other side, now this Satat, under Satat Yojana, around 5,000 CBG plants are going to come, which will replace, or you can say which will produce around 15 million metric ton equivalent CBG gas. So that will be a good say product replacement it will be doing. Efforts are also on the hydrogen side. A lot of R&D is going on, and we have seen recently the HCNG kind of project recently commissioned at our Rajghat that is being implemented through the funding of CST and OIDB. And the IOC is the main implementer of this thing. We are having more programs for not only for the green hydrogen, but also for the SOFC, for the green power, even for the batteries kind of systems. A lot of R&D work is at present, it is on. A lot of thrust is there on the green power and green energy. Thank you.
An additional question, sir. You said 12 biorefineries and 10 in the demonstration plant. So in 3 to 4 years' time, what would be the investment which will happen in these biorefineries and demonstration plant? A number to it, sir.
See, typically one biorefinery is costing around 1,000 to 1,200 crore. Out of that, around 150 crore is the viability gap fund that is being done through CST. But typically the cost you can say around 1,000 to 1,200 crore per biorefinery.
Thank you, sir, for your candid way of talking to us and giving your entire future plan so that things become easy for all the people who are looking at this sector as an attractive one. Thank you, sir. Now, I would request Mr. Prabh Das, MD and CEO. He's from HPCL Mittal Energy. In short, we call it HMEL. And he was earlier looking as a joint secretary. He was looking at the petroleum and natural gas sector very closely. Now he's part of the industry. So his views are what we can say very important. So I wanted to know from you, sir, what can India do something in the petrochemical and chemical sector to be Aatma, as we are looking at an investment of almost $8 billion in 10 years time frame. So over to Mr. Prabh Das.
Thank you very much, Pravin. I must congratulate you and the Indian Chemical Week, for organizing this, wonderful seminar. The topic is very, very, timely. Role of PSU in making chemical industry Aatma. The advantage which I am having that, two of my predecessors, speakers were from oil and gas sector, and Vartika is there to take over from me, so I can, skip something she can cover. But, Ravitej and KK has, elaborately covered oil and gas sector. I will just, touch a few points. When India wants to do something, it does it in its style. 2000, not very long time back, we were importing petrol and diesel. We were importing petrol and diesel 20 years back. I was seeing a number nearly, $500 million was spent on importing. And it's a joint collaboration that Mr. Sobti was mentioning. Both public and private sector, joint sector, all came up 2020. We are the third largest exporter in the world of petroleum product. Third largest, only after Singapore and US. We have exported 65 million ton of $36 billion product. We may not be sufficient in producing crude, but when we do things within style, and the Prime Minister has given a target of doubling the capacity, we will be the makers of the world. Aatma is not only making India self-sufficient, we should be make for the world. We are making petroleum product for the world, and this capacity is going to double. Just think of 2030. Now come back to petrochemical. Everybody said that we are importing. Yes, we are importing, and import is increasing. I was seeing the figure. in 8-9, we were importing petrochemical and chemical, some 10,000 crore rupees. Last year, 1,30,000. 3 years in, 3 lakhs. 3 lakhs crore rupees import is going to happen. And this is the time when, jointly everybody has now thought that, this is the sector we should get into, and everybody is getting into. BPCL, he mentioned, Mr. K.K. Jain also mentioned about all the other companies, IOC, BPC, HPC, HMEL, Niara Energy, Reliance, you name it, or you name the word, everybody is now getting into integrating refinery with petrochemical. We are also doing it. How much we require? It was mentioned that, polymer, we produce 13 million ton and the growth is 6-7%. We require one naphtha cracker, ethylene cracker every year. One ethylene cracker costs 20,000 crore. And that's the investment which we are looking for. And it's not there, it's on the line. When India has taken up, India will do it. I was just calculating, we are going to invest 8 lakh crore rupees in next 7-8 years. 8 lakh crore. This is the investment we should be looking for. And government is giving all help. So I'm sure that, this sector is going to prosper and, we will be doing it in next few years. Thank you.
Yeah, the next question to you, sir, is you have a lot of expansion plans. And with the expansion plans coming into picture, we also need to nurture the EPC companies so that they can take up these large integrated projects so that the cost can come down. And it will also help in terms of better return on investment, sir. So with that into view, if you can throw some light briefly on these two aspects of expansion as well as nurturing EPC at the same time.
As I mentioned, that we are also getting from refinery into petrochemical, and the EIL, Madam Vartika Shukla is helping us out as a PMC in this. It is a 22,000 crore project. And I was trying to calculate, how much did we buy from India and how much are we buying from outside? 85% things are available right here in India. 85%. We are going in dollar terms only, say 2,000 to 3,000 crore rupees is going, and that mainly consists of 2-3 things. One is our technology, which currently we are not having, and Mr. Sadanand was there, and they are expert in making very big compressors, and we bought 3 of them from them. India is not making those type of compressor. We are having certain, cold boxes, etc., etc. But think of it. India is really Nirbhar in many of the things, many of the equipment. We bought 1,300 equipment. Only, 15, 16 are from outside. So India is good. We have to develop. How do we develop? There are 2. I saw one of the questions which was asked, in the question and answer that, PTR. One of the, reasons is PTR. Because we are a joint sector, we will function like a private company. We don't look, we don't have too much of a PTR guidelines, and we really encourage people to come. And that is the right way to develop India. Otherwise, if we go on insisting on proven track record, it will be very difficult for people to really develop further. So that is one part. The second is, we don't have big EPC contractors. If you are going to really do 8 lakh crore project, we don't have big EPC contract. Only 1 or 2 are there. So we got to change the rules. If the small contractor has to become big, we have to change the rule. All the contractors are one-sided. All the contracts are one-sided. Slowly we have developed a habit of not taking risk and passing on all the risk to the contractors. If we really have a balanced contract, that thing will change, and I think the good EPC contractor will come up. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now I would request Madam Vartika Shukla. I think I don't need to ask any questions from her. I think she needs to reply to Mr. Prabh's comments. But despite, since I have to ask, I will ask her Ma'am, how do you see the future landscape with respect to technology? And Mr. Prabh has also talked about that 85% is already available. And if the contracts are made in such a way that it benefits Indian companies, it will help in Atmanirbharta. So, ma'am, your views on this is very valuable as a major consultant to all these companies, the PSU companies. So, over to Madam Vartika Shukla.
Thank you, Prashant. And good afternoon, and my regards to Mr. Prabh-ji, Mr. Jain, and all the eminent panelists that are here today in this event, very successfully organized by the Indian Chemical News. Yes, as Sir already stated, the challenges in the industry, which is faced to enhance and expand the base of petrochemical. The one aspect which was stated in terms of technology, yes, while in the refining industry, the technology is more or less either developed or indigenized with in-house or collaborative efforts. But in the petrochemical sector, this is a very guarded area in terms of technology. So there is likely the way we can bring such technologies into the nation is more from an out-of-the-box thinking, not in a conventional manner, but in terms of some joint ventures and some offtake agreements, because these are some of these chemicals which we import, these are globally available at very competitive prices. And therefore, with the lack of building blocks and feedstocks, which are domestically available, vis-a-vis the cheaper imports, it is a challenge for this industry to stand up. So there has to be some kind of a business model where the technology provider works hand in hand with the Indian industry, with the Indian investments which are going to happen, such that it not only does it bring technology, it brings the the expertise, the operation expertise. There are many other aspects to implementing technology, as well as has some arrangement, a long-term basis in terms of supporting the product, not just domestically, but maybe even globally. So this is one way that can be looked at into bringing technology. Of course, there are policy interventions. Sir is a part of our efforts with DCPC to look at the expansion in the petrochemical sector. And the way we are looking into it is how to increase the availability of building blocks from appropriate refinery configurations. Such refinery configurations will aid the availability of the building blocks towards a multitude of petrochemicals. We know we are standing today at a juncture where the sustainable mobility is seeing a transition. How rapid it will be, how it will change the face of the complete liquid fuel business, be it the intervention of gas, be it the intervention of biofuels, be it any interventions of EV space, it is going to transform. So the crude to chemicals route, the oil to chemical and petrochemical is the future that we see. So policy intervention in terms of the PCPIRs, which we talked and have had certain issues, how to overcome all these policy interventions and handhold the industry to again rejuvenate interests in the investors, make it a profitable proposition. That is how we see the way forward into the industry. And I yes, quite agree that if we have to implement these projects, the capitalization of investment holds the key to success. How quickly we can bring them on stream and how quickly the owners can get back their revenue. That inherently is a function of the capability, the capacity, and the competitiveness of contractors and world-class contractors. Over the years, we do have sufficient space for many competitors to be present. But yes, there is a more significant role the industry and EIL is already playing, but we have to enhance our role to bring in more and more contractors, world-class contractors, and the contracts hold the essence of actually eliciting interest from them. Things like wherein we are bound by PSU, procedures and processes, where it is largely one-sided, and the cash flow issues, which are largely common to most of the contractors and most of the project implementation entities, is something which one has to handle. Also, various escalation clauses that we need to build in, such that there is a fair view on both sides, the owner side as well as the contractor side. We should always understand that nobody who is in the business is there to make a loss. They are all there to make profit, to grow. And when there is growth in the individual companies, whether it is contracting or owners, there is likely to be a flow of investments, a flow of expansion. So it has to be viewed in a more holistic manner. And I'm sure, we have also done to the extent possible, but there is always room for more improvement and enveloping more, fairness in terms of contracting. Some of the other aspects which I would like to share, because most of the panelists who are there, my colleagues and seniors from the oil and gas industry, have addressed that. But some other aspects in the chemical and petrochemical industry. One, the policy for single-use plastic. How penetrable it is, how effective it is going to play into the demand pattern of the plastics. The other thing is on managing wastes, which is going to come from the growing industry, plastic and polymer and petrochemical industry. EDCHT mentioned that petrochemical growth is about 1.5 times the GDP. So we are going to land up in a lot of plastic. So plastic recycling, technology, collection, segregation, recycling is an imperative. Today, it may not seem to be the need of the hour, but very soon industry has to move in that direction, and consumer behavior, policy interventions, technology availability, and the logistics of doing this are important to a self-sustaining country as a whole, and also building the infrastructure for handling these issues. I also saw a question in terms of utilization of other energy sources, which we are not dependent on imports, one of which is coal. And there is definitely a movement that we see in the industry in terms of gasification of coal towards bridging the gap between the supply and demand of various petrochemicals, building blocks, intermediates, and the chemical industry. Specifically for the refinery, since the refinery, it is a very vibrant industry, very vibrant sector, supporting the nation by way of exports. But the sustainability of refinery with lower margins can only be enhanced by way of introduction of various types of petrochemicals in the portfolio, such that the GRMs are robust and the returns are higher. So that is my view on how the landscape of chemical and petrochemicals is to see as we go along in the future.
Madam, a brief answer to the demand which is happening in terms of new technologies, in terms of indigenization. How is EIL gearing up for this? Briefly, if you can talk about that.
Specifically, if you see the petrochemical space, we have been implementing beyond the refinery projects. We have recently successfully implemented the polymer derivative complex for BPCL Kochi, and we are very closely associated, and our whole team is completely engaged with the prestigious HMEL petrochemical complex, which is looking at expanding the refinery to produce the petrochemicals. And there is also plans for future expansion into the polymer industry. There is always effort towards looking at entering newer areas by way of doing feasibilities and detailed feasibilities, such that we understand newer technology and go into project implementation. Within the space of the refinery industry, as DG Scope mentioned, we have substantial developments with in-house R&D and collaborative R&D. We have more than 35 technologies which we license, and we have a huge footprint in the refining industry. Of late, we have also developed and improved the processes such that we are able to competitively win such technology bids, which was something new for a PSU to participate in terms of technology bidding. This only goes to prove that while the journey is not easy and the journey is not short, it is a long haul effort, but at the end of the day, we do have technologies which are world-class, and against world-class competition, we are able to compete and win our space in the industry.
Thank you, ma'am, for your, what we can say, giving clarity of thoughts on the new technology and the indigenization part of it. Just, I will say to take a short quiz break. The first question, and I would request all the delegates, if they can answer the questions on the chat window. So they have to answer this in the chat window and not anywhere else. So my first question is, what is Elliott Group's tagline? My first question is, what is Elliott Group's tagline? So you can type your answer in the chat window. I repeat, what is Elliott Group's tagline? So the delegates are typing their answers. Now I would request Mr. Kishor Rungta, CMD FACT, Fertilizer and Chemicals Travancore. They have been doing very extremely well. And 1920 has been extremely well because they have done 133% capacity utilization, 40% increase in revenue. Sir, how do you see the performance of your company in FY 2020 and 21? Mr. Kishor Rungta.
Good evening to all my good friends and colleagues on this webinar. And as you said correctly, the performance of the company for the year 1920 was exceedingly very well. We operated the plant with 133% capacity. And as far as the 2021 is concerned, till October, we have done exceedingly well, even though there is a COVID-19 pandemic spread everywhere. But remarkably, company has done, and we have broken all the past history as far as the performance is concerned with respect to production, dispatch, and sales. So I'm expecting 21-22 will be is better than 19-20.
Sir, with respect to the second question, from around 3,000 odd crores of revenue that you have done, around 3,000 odd crores, you are looking at a 5,000 odd crore revenue by 2022-23 FY. So how are you planning to achieve this number, and what are your expansion plans, sir?
You see, we are in the chemical fertilizers, so definitely all my fertilizer will come under the complex fertilizer. And if you see the country, it imports almost 7 lakhs chemical fertilizer. And that is why we are planning to add another 5 lakh tons, the complex fertilizer. Our tender is already floated. We are going to add another 5 lakh by 22-23, because the timeline is almost 18 months. With this, and then second, we are going to start our another petrochemical plant, what we call caprolactam. So with this caprolactam plant, when we start operating, I'm planning to start it by January or February 2021. If that happens, this gives me additional 500 crore turnover with the caprolactam plant, because I will be producing almost 50,000 metric tons caprolactam. This is itself is going to be make chemical industry in caprolactam Nirbhar, because the gap between the import and my production is almost 60,000 tons. And if I bridge this gap, with a production of 50,000 metric tons, I think the caprolactam industry will be self-sufficient and will definitely be Nirbhar. Because other than FACT, only GSFC is having this facility to produce in the country. So when I am not there, entire gap is getting imported. So this is going to add 500 crore to my top line. And as I told you that I'm going to add another 5 lakh tons fertilizer, which is also a chemical fertilizer. And that will also make the company self-reliant, Aatma as far as the complex fertilizer is concerned. And that will give me additional 1,300 crore turnover. So with these two items, one is petrochemical plant, another is expansion, will take this company to the bracket of 5,000 crores plus turnover.
So that's a very encouraging number, sir. Any challenges that you foresee? And I think the entire ecosystem is out here to help you out in terms of eliminating the challenges. So any challenges, if you can talk about, so that the industry can come forward and help you and achieve your target.
So as far as I told you, since I'm going for caprolactam, and if you see the history of this company, the caprolactam quality what we produce is huge in demand because the reliability of the quality is very high. Not only the petrochemical, even if you see my product fertilizer what we manufacture is called Factum Phos, 2 elephants. It is also a premium brand in entire South India. So as far as the production is concerned and the marketing is concerned, I don't foresee any challenges for me. And with respect to capacity expansion, when I'm going to make an additional 5 lakhs fertilizer, I'm already making my footsteps into the new market. Because now presently we are confining only to the 5 states of South. So when keeping expansion in mind, we are making our footprint in West Bengal, Odisha, Maharashtra, UP and Bihar. So I think with this, advanced steps for marketing, we will insulate ourselves for all future risks.
Thank you, sir. Now I would request Mr. Ghanshyam Patel. He is the former ED Operations GSFC. And I wanted to know his views because he is from the fertilizer sector, a renowned name. So my question is, how do you see modernization in fertilizer sector, both on PSU and cooperative sector, to make India Aatmanirbhar? Over to Mr. Ghanshyam Patel.
Yeah. See, what has happened that fertilizer industries has been given an incentive for the subsidy as well as the performance also. Like Bureau of Energy Efficiency for outperforming in your energy saving in the urea plants, which is a major fertilizer for our agricultural country. See, the reduction in the energy consumption is directly achieved by the revamping as well as the modernization of the existing plant. We have a very old technology and very few, only one plant has come last year, only new plant at the Chambal fertilizer at 3, but no new plants are still upcoming. But yes, another 5 plants which government has taken up for a revamping or a restructuring of the old FCI plants. And at that time, by 2020-24, by 23-24, we will become not only the self-reliant, but will be surplus of the fertilizer industry. And here, the emphasis is given by the ministry as well as the for the subsidy for energy saving. And the modernizations schemes are being taken up by all the industries, including cooperative, private, as well as the public sector units. And these are the gain. And many small revamping plants also being done, revamping schemes also being done. Like one of the things which our company is doing for the Russian technology to improve the energy efficiency of the urea plant by a very small amount of the investment. And we have achieved so far in the 7 plants the good achievement for the reductions of the steam consumption, which indirectly then gives the saving of the natural gas by way of the energy consumption.
One brief question, sir, with respect to future positioning of fertilizer sector in the next 5 years, when so many plants come up, what should be the future positioning of the PSUs?
As far as the urea is concerned, if these 5 projects Of course, because of the COVID, some of the construction work has halted or it is getting delayed. But whenever it comes by 2023-24 and it comes in the operation, we will be self-reliant in terms of the not only the urea, but import of the LNG, which is required as a basic raw material, will reduce because we'll be putting these plants on the coal base and make a regasifications and utilize this for producing the fertilizers. This will be our gain. Another gain we are doing that phosphatic fertilizer, though we India do not have a much resources enough, so we are dependent on the either getting the raw material like rock phosphate or the intermediate product like phosphoric acid or at the finished crudes. But new plants are coming, and another 2-3 projects are also being done by the cooperative sector as well as the private sector and public sector, which will bring this phosphatic fertilizer on front also. We will be also self-reliant. Another thing what I want to tell you that Indian talent outside where there is a fertilizer industry, they are working very efficiently, and they are most of the fertilizer GCC companies are depending upon the Indian talent to perform, and our people are performing there. So performance of our Indian fertilizer industry post the revamping our new edition of the plants, there will be excellent, and the country which requires the food, we will be more and more reliant. I will tell you this, there is a, this year it is expected, and finance ministry has declared also, there will be around 17.8% actual fertilizer increase in this year only, 2021 only. And this will reduce this will increase our food grade from 499, which was in 1670, to 673 lakh tons of a food grain we will be producing. This means that the fertilizer, which is a raw material basic requirement of the agricultural produce to feed our 130 crore people, this will play a very important role in our country to make not only self-reliance in the, but also having enough food for the people, which is a major requirement, primary requirement, irrespective of the industry or anybody. And normal people also require the food, and for which fertilizer is required.
Thank you, Ghanshyam ji, for your what we can say brief comments. Let me take 2 questions, a quiz break, and if you see the screen, I'm just hinting you will get the answer. So my question is, and you have to put these answers on the chat window. What is the tagline of HMEL? What is the tagline of HMEL? Please type your answers on in the chat window. And let me also take another question, if you are through. What is the full form of scope? What is the full form of scope? Mr. Atul Sobti was DG scope. I'm just giving you a hint. So thank you, delegates, for actively participating in this discussion. We still have 3 more speakers to go. So Rakesh Verma is here, CEO and ED Simon India. Sir, you have heard almost all the speakers. You come from, say, the EPC background, and many people talked about, Prabh Das ji talked about, Vartika madam talked about EPC. And I think all the PSUs are very clear that they would like to, what we can say, develop EPCs to an extent that they become indigenous, they become big so that they can take integrated projects. So wanted to know your views and how do you plan to work with these companies so that India can prosper and return on investment can increase. Over to Mr. Rakesh Verma.
Good afternoon, all the panelists and the delegates. It's my pleasure to be here amongst the elite panel members. And I want to congratulate Chemical News that they have very apt panel for this particular subject, basically. Very apt. All aspects are covered here, whether it is technology or it is engineering or it's a consultancy or it is owner operator. And I'm there as EPC also. And of course, it is that. So thanks, Mr. Prabdas and Vartika, to make my job easier. You have spoken very apt things about EPC, which I was supposed to detail out a little bit, but thank you very much for laying a foundation for that. Just to give my background, I have been in EPC as well as engineering and consultancy. I was part of Engineers India Limited for a long time to start my career with. And then I have been with L&T, I have been with Samsung Heavy Industries, and so EPC, and now I am with this Birla Group, KK Birla Group, Advent Zuari Agro, where we have our own fertilizer plants, as well as we are doing EPC projects. And I'm very happy to be part of 4 projects which are part of Nirbhar, and these are recent one. Mr. Rungta was selling caprolactam. So GSFC pilot caprolactam has been done by us as EPC by Simon. And LPG terminal, the world's largest terminal so far by Adani and IOCL in Mundra, that we have just commissioned as EPC of about 400 crores. And sulfuric acid, which is basically, will become Atmanirbhar, because there are a lot of import of sulfuric acid we are doing, especially the fertilizer industry, So we have completed last year 2,000 tons per day sulfuric acid plant at Paradip, and we are planning to put 2 more plants, 2,000 tons per day each in Paradip and in one of this MCFL, Mangalore Chemical and Fertilizer. So the another one is very, very recent with GNFC. This is dicalcium phosphate. So which will at another hand increase the export potential. So encouraging or enhancing export and curbing the import is the key, for being Atmanirbhar. So I'll just briefly give my views on this, that Atmanirbhar, I'm using the word Atmanirbhar, Hindi word, the key to Atmanirbhar is basically Chahumukhi Vikas, all-round development. You cannot achieve Atmanirbharta without being Chahumukhi Vikas. So this is what is all skill development schemes of Prime Minister are about. And this is what all PSUs are doing right now also. They are supporting a lot value chain, there is a volume required, business volume required for doing anything, for developing the skills or doing R&D, there has to be a business volume required. So my previous speakers have already mentioned that there is a huge business available with PSUs, and the capital expenditure is huge and increasing. And there are a lot of projects on the floor right now, which can be utilized for this exercise of Chahumukhi Vikas and thus the Atmanirbhar Bharat. See, what I believe in that the PSUs have to contribute in creating the value hubs. Not only the supplies or manufacturing, from Indian companies and all, but also, as many other speakers also told, we have to target the value chain, right from technology, design, manufacturing, construction, commissioning, operation, decommissioning, dismantling. So complete project life cycle has to be brought in picture. And for that, whatever R&D needs to be done, whatever innovations have to be done, there are a lot of materials which we are importing because of metallurgical. Vartika will appreciate that there are metallurgy issues are there which are not possible in India. Then we have to do a lot of innovative design and R&D, that whether inferior metallurgy can work with higher thickness, kind of things, there are a lot of things. so that we can make this economically viable Indian product to be used on our projects. So these type of activities are ongoing. I'm happy I have examples that these things are being done, but we need to increase our efforts on that. See, this can be achieved only by, through strategic global collaborations, like Vartika also told that there is a tough time in choosing, import is cheaper, and so these industries, chemical industry has a great challenge. So the answer is strategic global collaborations, and we have to find out the ways how to make it balance, how to and make Indian solutions viable for Indian projects, and also export it at the same time. As an EPC contractor, I would like to repeat again what Mr. Prabh has already mentioned, that there is a need to work to see when more people will be there. There are small contractors like us also. MSMEs are there. There are many contractors which can come in this fray if we work on technical as well as commercial qualifications criteria. And if we will do that, we are increasing the number of, we are increasing the competition. And once competition is increased, certainly it will benefit industry, all of us. Quality will go up, safety norms will be better, prices will come down. So competition always does good things. So my earnest request is that we need to look at technical as well as qualification criteria, to bring in more and more players as EPC contractors. Not only that, kindly allow me to go one step further. Vartika was talking about cash flow issues. So there are some countries are already following this. We need to consider funding of the projects from owner operator for the smaller contractors. If we do that funding, then the cash flow problems will be solved and availability of the plant will be early. So no delays, good quality project you are getting in time, which is performing good. So this certainly will add value, and of course, return on investment will be much, much higher. So this will benefit India. Again, Nirbhar Bharat. Now I'll touch a little bit on the trade imbalance. As everyone has mentioned already, that there is a great imbalance in import and export. So, and this is being addressed too also. Like, we need to find out strategic areas where, like for example, crude oil and chemical intermediates are biggest contributors to this import. Now, if we kind of, find out the ways to reduce the oil uses and switch over to alternative feedstocks, like we are doing already, then certainly this dependency will go down on the imports. Some examples are like coal gasifications, coal to liquid, CTL, CBG, we already talked about. So these things, fertilizers using coal will certainly reduce the dependency on the oil, and the oil imports will certainly go down. So these are few things which we have to go do brainstorming. These panels like this have to sit together, use their ideas, share the ideas, and then maybe we can, we are actually impressing on these things to ministry also through various forums. So this is what is needed right now, that all the intellect has to come together and find out various ways to curb the imports and encourage or enhance the exports. One example for the exports, I'll tell you, I just told you that DCP, dicalcium phosphate, this is a animal feed grade. This has a great value. the return on investment is only 4 years, within 4 years. This one I am having that we are doing that project for GNFC and EcoFOS basically. Unfortunately, project is under hold due to, but Prime Minister Mr. Modi has spoken about this project for 15 minutes. You can go to YouTube and find out. I mean, this is such a project, if these my friends, who are into this business owners, if they can consider, I am trying to impress my own plants also, Chambal fertilizer also, that why don't they put one plant DCP themselves. So if we, Aditya Birla is already working on that. So if we put at least 8 to 10 plants of DCP, then our export will go high, very, very high. And these are having very high value. So this is one example I just wanted to give you. Another example is 2G renewable projects. So, I mean, this is another where it will go a long way, not into Atmanirbhar, but also environmental issues will be addressed too. And oil companies can certainly look towards these areas, as Mr. Nitin Gadkari also had started talking about viability funding, which our friend also suggested that. And
Rakesh ji, let me give one more chance to our professor. He's the one who has not yet spoken, and then we will take few questions also. So okay. I will stop you here, sir. Okay. We have with us Professor Satyabhusan Das. He is the professor for marketing IIM Lucknow. He's also recently been appointed as BPCL chair professor in customer care. So my question to you, Professor Das, is how will this synergistic collaboration between academia and PSUs help to become Atmanirbhar? And I'm also adding the second question itself, so which is how customer aspirations can be enhanced through the customer relationship management. So if you can be short, sir, because we need to take few questions also from the audience. You please unmute yourself, Professor Das.
Okay, good afternoon, and thanks, Prashantji, for organizing this very interesting discussion. This is very timely, and all of my past speakers have spoken there from oil and gas industries. I'll just add one important aspect. You have asked a very right question, is customer focus, how this oil and chemical industries. So if you look at the history, the most important contribution of PSU is that all the PSUs, they have become one brand, and from a commodity, low involvement commodity category, they have transformed to brand. So, for example, they have created incremental value so that people can make a differentiation in the look at oil sector, petroleum sector. Earlier, people are telling petrol is petrol and the price is same. So there was not much differentiation. First time in 2002, if you look at the history, BPCL, one of the leading player in the Indian petroleum industry, launched premium grade petrol under the brand name Speed. Then IOCL, HPCL, they have started their one IOCL, I think new generation fuel, that is HPCL and IOCL power. And not only product innovation, they have done a lot of innovations, customer focused, looking at the emerging need of the consumers, because people are more become environment conscious. I don't want to give the statistics. A lot of initiatives my past speakers have told. Initiatives has been already done to alternative fossil-based fuel. And apart from this, the most important product innovation, creating differentiation in terms of in a commodity market to low involvement to high involvement, so that people will be more loyal. And second most important thing, we in our marketing mix, we tell promotion. They are giving a consciousness, rising consciousness among the consumers, a safe fuel and judicious fuel consumption also, these PSUs. Another important aspect is the value-added services. What are the value-added services they are doing? Earlier, what happens, visiting a petrol pump was a for consumption, for getting some petrol or something that is a convenience, people are going. But now they are doing a pleasurable experience. Like there are some loyalty clubs are created. Customers are loyal to petrol pumps. They are creating a lot of mechanism by grievance because there is a cutthroat competition. And this competition, when we are talking about earlier the selling focus, that only we are selling the product. Now they are understanding the need of the consumer. Accordingly, they are doing some bonus points, loyalty programs, so that people are more conscious and involved in understanding quality versus quantity. Suppose somebody is loyal to me, judiciously they are examining the quality and quantity aspect. This is a very important aspect that consumerism, arising the consumerism among the petrol consumers. This this PSUs have a very important role. You look at history. Apart from these value-added services, there are a lot of opportunities. If you look at consumer behavior, and another important aspect I am just leaving, that location convenience. This PSUs have set up a lot of petrol pumps that actually give opportunity to the Indian retailers who are very at different diverse locations. They could access to the petrol pump. And when we are talking about academia and industry collaboration, still there are a lot of opportunities. I can tell, for example, I am now working with BPCL about customer care, that what are the important factors that leads to positive experience. That is still an unexplored area, and there are a lot of issues that can be explored. For example, customer acquisition to retention, and also cross-selling, how we can collaborate with the industry, and you can do focus research and create some understanding so that further more marketing activities can be done. This is one area, customer relationship management, because it is not important that why a customer will be loyal to a particular piece, and what are the mechanism and what are the product level understanding related to experience, customer experience, what a chemical industry, PSUs can create so that customer will be more loyal. This is one aspect. Another important aspect I can tell, that evolving consumer need, like the innovations that has been already started, they have started a lot of opportunities, but because digitalization has created a lot of opportunities. How we can explore, harness technology so that connect with customers and give them better product and services. So academia and industry collaboration will always helpful in understanding the evolving consumer need, making customer more better experience services, and we can make, if we'll collaborate, we can co-create value for the customer in a better way.
Thank you, Professor Das. Now I request Mr. Sadanand Bhavanishankar. Sadanand ji, sir, you have heard many upcoming large refinery and petrochemical and fertilizer plants being set up by PSUs during the course of the discussion. So how does Elliott Group plan to support these upcoming large projects?
Mr. Pravin, first of all, am I audible? And
yeah,
visible?
you are audible. You are audible, sir.
And I'm not sure if I'm visible, but that's okay. So first of all, it becomes a really interesting thing for me to start this conference and commence and set a tone and come in right at the end of the conference after listening to many speakers, stalwarts, which has been very enlightening and very encouraging. There's an old saying that it's better to be good than perfect. And the fact that most of our public sectors and the industry stalwarts are now thinking of taking more risks, creating fair contracts, EPCs, OEMs, and end users. This is a great feeling for us. So listening to the new projects coming up for refineries, petrochemicals, which we in the industry are aware of, we have a number of plans which we started earlier, but after today's conference, it has enhanced our resolve In the pre-bid stage, for example, we have set up full-fledged marketing applications design engineering team in Bangalore, which can support PSUs, EPCs directly, save a lot of time, close communication, rapid responses. In the post-order stage, we have a manufacturing facility. I saw one of the questions which was set up there by one of the participants was about steam turbines manufacture and other compressors manufacture in India, particularly some of the smaller ones. I'm happy to say that last year, anticipating the business needs in the country, we have set up a world-class state-of-the-art facility in Bangalore for manufacturing steam turbines up to 10 megawatts, both for general industry as well as for the process industry. Secondly, for large equipment, which Mr. Prabh touched upon for the HPCL project, which has been a privilege to supply to them, all the auxiliaries for the first time, HPCL took the step of placing trust in us, and very large auxiliaries which go into these machines, all of them were sourced in India. All of them were purchased in India, inspected in India, shipped to the site. And to commission this, we have a full-fledged team. We no longer need to rely a lot upon imports, but for large projects, our global organization gives the support for India, from other regions, globally, etc. We're also adding a lot of engineering capability this year, next year, to support the global market as well as PSUs when we need to get into project management, when we get into quality, sourcing, basically a one window integrated approach. So PSUs for new projects, right from the pre-bid phase to when the key is turned at the very end and the plant is started up. Typically, this cycle is about 3 to 4 years for these large billion-dollar projects. We are there to support them right from day one. And as I mentioned, to close out, today's Enlightening Conference has just made our resolve stronger that we are going to utilize Elliott in India a lot more in the next coming decade till 2030 to meet the petrochemical needs. So that in a nutshell is my answer on what we plan to do.
Anji, one brief answer which I needed from you is, these the global capability centers, is it enough to look at the expansion? You saw everybody talking about expansion. Is your global capability center geared up for this expansion, which India is focusing through the Aatmanirbhar Bharat project?
Yes, yes, very much. It is in the process of gearing up, though COVID-19 and the current pandemic did slow down our plans a little bit. We were planning to be probably 50 to 60% set up last year and this year, and we are probably half of that goal today. But having said that, all our business units, as I mentioned, whether it is for small turbines, small turbo machinery, very large centrifugal compressors and turbines for big projects, or the aftermarket, our global capability center includes an international procurement office, which serves the need for local suppliers, enhancing, finding, encouraging MSMEs, encouraging to find more and more sources in India, and use these sources not just in India, but abroad. It involves an engineering center, involves a drafting center, involves global quality. So the total capability center or the global capability center, which is the buzzword worldwide, this is something we hope that in the next 1 year, we should be almost geared up to meet the demand of the new projects. We would have probably been in a better shape today had the pandemic not hit. But as I say to sum up the pandemic, there are 3 types of persons, whether it's an organization or an individual. People who survive, they struggle, but they survive. People who adapt, who not just survive, but they can adapt to the changing conditions. But most of all, people who thrive, who have business continuity. And the conference you organized tomorrow with the August set of speakers points as a path to thrive for each one of us, whether we are an OEM, an OPC, an EPC, an end user, a consultant, a licensor. So that's the goal we are striving, that we all need to thrive in these coming times for the next few decades. And Elliott is certainly there to support the PSUs.
Thank you, Sadanand ji. Let me take a few questions for say 10 minutes. This question is from Mr. K. Nagaya. What is petrochemical industry goal going towards Aatmanirbhar? And I would request Mr. K. Jain if he can answer briefly this part, sir. What is petrochemical industry goal going towards Aatmanirbhar? Sir, you are not audible, sir. You have to.
I can talk from the refining perspective.
Okay.
See, one thing we definitely know that petrochemical industries are growing at a very fast pace. As I said earlier also that the demands are growing GDP 1.5 times. And that production has to match. But what happened in India because of non-availability of the feedstocks, we could not meet or match the demand with respect to the production. So our import started increasing. But now the situation is different. What we are seeing, the refineries which earlier had the target of meeting the transport demand, now they are started looking for the petrochemical because of two reasons. They are, in fact, they are compelled to do so. The one thing is the margins are very thin now in the refining industries. So with the thin margin, it is very difficult to survive until unless they do the value addition. And that value addition can do through the petrochemicals because of two things. One thing, the margins are better. Second thing, it gives a natural hedge. In case the petroleum products prices are going down, it can be compensated through the petrochemicals. So each refinery now is trying to increase the petrochemical intensity in their complex itself to have a flexibility. And I have already told that the petrochemical production will increase from 13.8 million metric ton, which is today. It will reach to 56 million metric ton. That is the plan of the public sector refining company I'm talking alone. If we add the joint ventures like say HMEL or say Reliance, etc., this will further increase. The issue lies with 2 or 3 products like PVC. We have seen that there is a huge import that is taking place and PVC production is not increasing in the country. Whereas the productions for say polypropylenes or the other ethylene derivatives is increasing commensurate to the demand. The reason is for ethylene derivatives, polymers, the profitability is better. Even for MEG profitability better. PVC comes at the say, 3rd level. Another thing for PVC require a unique combination that the chlorine should also be there. So now the thrust should come, or rather, in fact, we are from the CST also, we are now impressing the refineries that whenever you are planning to make say ethylene crackers, so kindly reserve some of the ethylene for the PVC productions also. So PVC is one. For this, the import is increasing and it has to increase. For other products, the capacity is going to come and the capacity will increase exponentially. So our import is also going to reduce drastically.
Thank you, sir. This question was to Vartika ma'am, but since she has left, I would request Rakesh Verma ji to answer. There is every PSU tender talks about proven track record, which acts as an impediment. So how do we solve this, Rakesh Verma ji?
Yeah, so as Vartika also talked about it when she gave her views, and I also mentioned it, that there is a need for PSUs to consider some relaxation in qualification criteria, to cover bigger, the platform, more participants can be there, even smaller contractors may be there. So there are various ways of doing. Either you change the criteria or you make the packages smaller, like Mr. Prabh has done it, make smaller packages. So these are the 2 ways of doing it.
Sir, Mr. KK Jain, there is a question on import of catalyst design, and there are a lot of speakers talking about catalyst design. Can it be developed in-house or within India, sir?
Yes, now at present you must have listened to Mr. Ravitej also. CST is becoming the anchor to have the catalyst development and the manufacturing facility in the country, largely because of the 2 reasons. One, now with the say onset of the BS6 kind of same product, which has now have been regularized with effect from April 2020, all the products which are coming out from the refineries are the catalytic conversion products. So the catalyst requirement in the country is increasing like anything. And this will get almost double by the same 2025. So there is a urgent need to put up the catalyst manufacturing plant in the country. First thing, to reduce the dependency on the foreign manufacturers. Second thing, to improve the profitability of our own company. Third thing is to scale up the R&D efforts that is being done in the catalyst in different say oil companies, be it HPCL, BPCL, Indian Oil Corporation, all are at a different stage where they want to scale up. But the problem is that they do not have the expertise in building up the plant. So what we are trying to do is at present through the CST platform, we have invited many catalyst manufacturers, suppliers, manufacturers as well as the suppliers to have a joint venture plant in India. And within say next 3 to 4 years, you will find at least 2 to 3 plants in India. And within 1 year, you will listen some announcement of some joint venture in catalyst manufacturing.
Sir, one more question is from Forum Khanderia. He's talking about, is there any kind of progress with respect to technology development for recycling of plastic, sir? I think...
yes, the job is... the successful trial have been done, and it is the CSIR lab IIP in Dehradun. They have developed the recycling one, but it is not available at present at the commercial level. The economic viability is yet to be established. Technology have been developed in-house.
One more question to you, sir. This is from Ashwini Kaul. How should the procurement-related decision-making culture at plant/custom level be improved to enable risk-taking while sourcing indigenously developed technologies or equipment?
See, once we talk the industry does not want to take risk of the suboptimal sub-quality product. That is sure. Nobody wants, because if it affects the safety of the plant or the quality of the plant, nobody will like to do. The advantage what can be given is the make in India, like local content. So now government is also promoting, and all the PSU have been asked to formulate and find out the local content in their products. So in all the tenders, if say chemicals, if it is related to chemicals, or even say catalyst, or even say equipment supplier also, the advantage of the local content will be given. Means they will be competing on the equal front. But if a local manufacturer is there, and if he is able to establish that he is having, say, as per the tender conditions, the local content, he will be given the first priority to match the price.
There is a question from Mr. Bharat Panchal, and this is for Sadanand. There is a requirement of many small turbines from 15 kilowatt to 1 megawatt. Does your company focus on this, sir?
Sorry, I was on mute. I just unmuted myself. Okay. Mr. Panchal, thank you for the question, and it's very much right on target. Yes, we do. We do manufacture turbines in India right here since last year for capacity starting from very small 5 to 10 kilowatts right up to 10 megawatts in single stage, multi-stage, single valve configurations. And we do the complete package also. These are for any kind of application in the process industry or in the general industry, and they can be used for mechanical drives, whether in refining, petrochemicals, sugar, fertilizers, you name it. So if you have anything specific which you are interested in, please let us know, and somebody will reach out to you to meet what exactly you need. I hope that answers your question.
We have answered majority of the questions. There was one question from Khushbu Chaplet. Thoughts on digitization with respect to self-reliant. We had a webinar on digitization. We are again going to have a webinar on digitization on December 15th, where the focus is on achieving sustainability via digital transformation. Please register yourself and listen to our eminent panelists who will give a further view on how digitization is going to impact Atmanirbhar. I would like to thank all my panelists, all my speakers who gave time to be on this forum and took time out to participate and engage with us. And they were very candid in terms of their thoughts, their expansion plans, what they are doing, so that the entire industry, academia, the entire ecosystem can come together and benefit from this entire process. Let me also thank all the delegates. I can still see 120 numbers. We had a registration of around 500. Around, I think 270 or 300 would have listened to this webinar. Our webinar would be uploaded on ICN websites. All our webinar is uploaded on ICN website. So whenever you get time, because this has been a very, from a media point of view, I would say there are not many news in this capsule that we are making. Before we end, let me announce the winners of the quiz contest. The three questions that we asked. So in the case of first, there were many answers, but some of them were from the vendor community. So we have not taken them into consideration. So from the sponsors. So what we have done is we have not taken them as the winner. And the winner is KR Krishna, Senior Manager, HPCL. So for the first question, and the question was with respect to a tagline of Elliott. The second was the winner is Dipanjan Banerjee from HMEL, Kolkata. He is the deputy manager there. And the third is Mr. Vikas Neeraj, Vice President Operations Inspection Services India, Lloyd Register Asia. So the HMEL part was already visible on the screen, so you would have seen that. And the full form of scope was Standing Conference on Enterprises. So these were the three questions. I would like to thank all my delegates, all my speakers for bearing with us. We have already, we started a bit early to finish on time, but I see I have been delayed by 35 minutes, and I see say 5 speakers already with us. Let me give them a big hand of applause for being with us and supporting us. We are a young organization, and we would require your support and help as we move forward. Just reminding you that we will have our next conference on December 8th, which is on agrochemical, which is making India a global agrochemical manufacturing hub. I would like to thank my sponsors, both Elliott as well as Simon India, for making this a success. I am Pravin Prashant, along with Yogesh Joshi, signing off from Indian Chemical News.